Hi there, this is Nova. Welcome to the Singer Featherweight Tip of the Month for May of 2019. We've been discussing tension on your Singer Featherweight. We've talked about the bobbin tension. We talked about that last year. And then the last tip of the month we talked about the top tension on your Singer Featherweight. I've had several questions asked since I posted that tip of the month. Why would I ever need to change the tension on my featherweight? Why can't I just set it and never have to touch it again? Well, if you're just doing normal quilting piecing on quilting cottons with 50 weight thread, you shouldn't ever have to adjust your tension. But some of us like to use different kinds of threads for different applications. This is 100 weight silk thread, and I used it when I quilted this piece here. It just adds a beautiful luster, and the little difference in, you would think, why would she use that color on that? But it just worked beautifully when I did this art quilt. It hangs in my guest bedroom, and I love silk thread for quilting. I just think it adds a great luster. I use it quite a bit when I am working on art quilts. Now, if I were to put that silk thread in here with my tension set here, which is what I do when I am quilting with 50 weight cotton, and I always use and recommend Masterpiece, Superior Masterpiece. It's available on my website, in the shop area of my website. That's what I piece everything with. And so my machine is set up for piecing right now, but if I were to put this 100 weight silk thread in it, the tension would be all wrong. I'd have bird's nest on the bottom because this would have to be tightened up. So it's a thinner thread, it's a lighter weight thread, it's 100 weight. And that's something for us to talk about as well. Thread and needles, when thread gets lighter, the number gets higher. It's just the opposite with needles. So this is a 100 weight silk thread. It's very, very fine. So if I were to put this in my machine with it set here, I would have big bird's nest on the bottom. So in this case, I would have to do what? Tighten the top tension. So I would move it to a higher number. And for silk thread, this is typically where I put my machine. So that's why you would adjust if you're changing the weight of the thread that you are using. Let's say I were going to do some quilting and I wanted a little bit heavier thread. I love Superior's King Tut thread. It is a beautiful thread. It comes in a beautiful variegated colors. And that's what I used when I did this machine applique. It was also the quilting process on this Fun and Done style quilt here. So I quilted through, when I was appliquing these leaves on this quilt, I was going through all the layers, not just appliquing through one layer of fabric. And this is a pattern that I developed called Nova's Autumn Leaves. And it's a great pattern. It's a fun pattern to put together. But I needed and wanted a little bit thicker thread for this, a little bit thicker thread to show up. And I was using this beautiful variegated thread by Superior. So if I had put that in there, run in that thread in my machine, with it set here, I would have had a big problem with my tension. This top thread would have been laying flat on the top because it would have been too tight. So what would I need to do in that case? I would need to loosen it up, so I would go to a lower number. So you're going to adjust the tension on your featherweight whenever you are changing the weight of the thread. That is what makes the difference in why you would change the tension on your featherweight. You can sew successfully with your featherweight with all different kinds of thread. This is an invisible thread here that I love using. I've used that before and I have great success. The thing is you need to know how to adjust the tension. That's why you would adjust it, and that's when you would adjust it. Now, one other thing to mention to you when we're talking about different weights of thread and using different weights of thread. These are Schmetz needles here, and that is what I piece with most of the time. I piece with 50 weight cotton thread, the Superior 50 weight Masterpiece thread, which is available on my website, and I typically piece with the Schmetz needles and an 80 universal. That is what I use most of the time in my featherweight. If I'm going to go down to a very fine thread like this kimono silk, also by Superior Threads, I'm going to need to change my needle. You match your needle to the weight of the thread. So if I'm using silk thread, typically I am going to use a Schmetz Microtex 60/8 needle. That's what I use when I am using silk. And when I'm using King Tut thread, it's a thicker thread, and so I'm going to go to the Schmetz 90 needle. Thread and needles work in reverse. When a thread gets larger, its number goes down, but you need a larger number needle. So if I'm using a 40 weight King Tut thread, I would use a 90 needle. If I'm just using Masterpiece that I piece with all the time, then I would use an 80 needle. Or if I'm using the kimono silk, I would use the 60 needle. And these are all standard sizes that I have on my website all the time. I hope you found this helpful. Okay, I have something very exciting to show you. I realize tension can be a really big problem for a lot of people, and it's confusing to them. And I've tried to help you with this over the last several tips of the month, but I've been thinking about it, and I kind of delayed this tip of the month until these were ready to distribute. They've just come in from the printer, and everything is squared away with the U.S. Copyright Office, so I am just thrilled to introduce these to you. I have developed a tension card for your Singer Featherweight. All of the instructions are clear. There are clear photographs, just like you've come to expect from my other featherweight cards. These will be available right away on my website. I hope that you find them very, very helpful. Happy stitching!